In every sport, there are the goals of the sport, the things that we're trying to accomplish. In baseball, it's getting a player around the bases and to home plate safely. In soccer, football, it's getting a ball into the back of the net. In chess, it's checkmating your opponent's king. And in sales, it's the 3 goals that we discussed in the lesson prior to this. And like I said in that lesson as well, with every why, there's a how. The rules of the game. In baseball, you have 9 innings, you have 3 outs per side. In football or soccer, you have 90 minutes, 2 halves, and boundaries to stay within in the game. And then with chess, you have an allotted time period and each piece can only make a certain kind of move. Principles being the unspoken rules of the game. In baseball, on a full count with 2 outs, you have your runner steal. In chess, it's principle to get your king out of the middle of the board. And it's principle in chess to attack the middle of the board if your opponent's king is not castled. Throughout the rest of this phase, we're going to go over the tangibles, the hard tactics, the hard skills of a sales call, opening game theory, how to use the knight to fork pieces, how to pin pieces with the bishop. But in this phase, in this lesson, we're going to go over the intangibles, the soft skills, the theory of the game, the principles that we want to follow in every single sales call. It should be a juicy one. I'm ready to get into it. Hope you are too. Let's dive in. Roll intro. So today we're going over the intangibles, things that are hard to grasp. And if something's hard to grasp or hard to comprehend when you're first starting, then it's hard to learn. So today what we'll do is we'll use chess as our analogy to make these points, make these principles make more sense. We'll tie the principles of a sales call to the principles of chess, and you'd be amazed if you do play chess at the similarities that the two share. But before we get started, just like we do on sales calls, we have to set the agenda to the lesson today. There are 4 things that we're going to be chatting on. Number 1 is playing your opponent in chess. Number 2 is creating tension in the chessboard. Number 3 is creating chaos. And number 4 is playing for checkmate. Number 1, diving in, playing your opponent in chess. See, what's really cool is looking at a new chess player and looking at a new closer, there's a lot of similarity. And the similarity mainly is that they always do the same thing. If you are playing chess and you're brand new to chess, a new chess player playing white will always make the same moves every single time, no matter what their opponent is doing. If you're playing a London as white and black comes out with a Caro-Kann or an anti-London or Sicilian, a new chess player will still do the same exact thing, even though all 3 of those defenses from black all require different opening variations from white. A new chess player just doesn't do that. They just do the same thing. They play a one-person game of chess. And they hope that their game plan is good enough to beat anything that black throws at it. Doesn't matter what black throws at it, they just hope that it's good enough. And that's what new closers do, new sales reps. New sales reps don't treat the sales conversations like a 2-person game. Most new chess players will use the same opening on every single game they play, whether they're playing white or black, and most new sales reps will try to use the same exact word tracks and lines on every single sales call they come across, even if they're not applicable to the prospect they're talking to. Grandmasters play a 2-person game of chess, and they play their moves dependent on the moves that their opponent plays. And top closers approach sales conversations like grandmasters do chess. Based on what the prospect opens with, they might respond differently. They might use different tracks. They might use a 1-call or 2-call close. If a prospect wants to get into desired outcome first, then a top closer will do that rather than start with pain. They follow where the sales conversation naturally goes, just like a grandmaster playing black will follow based on the opening that white makes. After having trained thousands of sales reps, something that I very commonly see is a sales rep that gets one script and uses that one script for every single sales conversation they have. The problem though is every single sales conversation is unique. In chess, you have somewhere around 10 to the 120th power variations of what the board can look like. It's a lot of unique cases. And in sales, it's the same. You do have your patterns, you do have your sales conversations that are common. You do have prospects that will start to kind of repeat themselves, if you will, but every single sales conversation is unique. And if you try to play every board in the same manner in chess, you'll lose. And just in turn, if you try to have every single sales conversation in the same manner, in the same frame and style, you won't close. And so just like a grandmaster does in chess, we have to approach every single sales conversation as a unique conversation. And we have to play off the style of the prospect. Is the prospect hotter? Are they colder? Do they have more intent, less intent? Are they financially qualified? Is that something we have to discuss? Is this a 1-call or a 2-call close? What's the lead source of the prospect? What does the prospect come out with in the opening? Are they saying that they right away aren't looking to do anything today? Are they saying right away that they're looking to solve this problem as soon as possible? Every single sales conversation is different. And thus we have to have a huge repertoire of opening theory and tactics and different things to use for different circumstances and different situations. And in the rest of phase 3, that's exactly what we cover, giving you an arsenal of opening theory and tactics and different things that you can use in different circumstances as they come across in different games or conversations. But the first thing you have to remember, the first principle to a sales call, is that we approach every single call differently, just like we approach every game of chess differently. And we have to make sure that we're always doing it from a consultative perspective. We analyze the position of our opponent and we play to the position that they're in. We analyze the problem that every single prospect goes through, and we diagnose a solution or play an attack plan based on their position, based on their problem. In the medical industry, it's actually malpractice to prescribe something to a patient without proper diagnosis. And in chess, you don't see top-tier chess players, grandmasters, running the same kind of attack to different positions that their opponent's playing. And in sales calls, we want to make sure that we're not blindly selling a solution to a prospect without understanding how it can actually help them. We analyze our opponent's position, we analyze our prospect's problems, and we dismantle objections by attacking differently based on where our opponent's defenses are, based on what those objections are for that unique prospect. The only reason that chess in this case isn't the best analogy is because it implies that sales conversations are competitive, but they're not. In a sales conversation, we want to be on the same side as a prospect. We're not attacking as much as we are helping. It's almost like our opponent wants to be checkmated, and we just have to be skilled enough to do it. Other than that, chess is a fantastic analogy because realistically, the difference between a new chess player and a grandmaster is their ability to play to the opponent's game style. And just in the same is what top closers do. Top closers are able to have much more custom fitted sales conversations, where new closers, new sales reps, tend to have the same sales conversation over and over and over. So the first principle, the first thing to work on is trying to make every single one of your positions, every single one of your sales calls as unique as possible to the call that you're having, to the person that you're talking to. Topic number 2 is keeping tension on the chessboard. See, something that new players do is they see a piece that can be traded and they see a little bit of tension, whether it's pawns looking at each other or knights or bishops looking at each other, queens that can be traded off the board. They see pieces that can attack each other, and new chess players get uncomfortable with it. And what they do is they just make all this small little engagement on the board that doesn't really get the board anywhere. It doesn't really create an actual attack, no threats. But grandmasters, they love tension. They'll create very complicated positions on a board that can create error and mistake. And the reason they do it is because the more tension there is on a board, the more likely it is for the better person, the better skilled player to win. There's calculation at that point. There's attacks, there's timing. And in turn, that's how we look at sales calls and sales conversations. See, new sales reps hate tension. They get on a call and they find out the prospect has a little bit of a pain. And instead of letting that pain compound and build and get deeper, a new sales rep will just try to sell to it right away. A new sales rep doesn't like the tension or the uncomfort of silence. So after price dropping at the end of a call, they try to fill that silence with babble and they lose sales. Professional sales reps, top tier closers, they love tension. And they love tension because just like grandmasters do in chess, they know tension leans toward the better player, the better skilled person winning. In this case, tension on sales calls helps problems become more severe. Pain becomes more severe. A new sales rep will look at pain, try to sell to it right away, and it's like solving paper cuts. But a professional sales rep will find pain and then let it compound and find more and more and more and let it go deeper and deeper and deeper. And eventually that pain becomes a knife in someone's chest that they want to remove. And removing a knife from someone's chest is much more valuable than fixing 4 or 5 paper cuts. Tension to the majority is uncomfortable, but tension to closers should be welcomed and wanted. As a closer, I'm always looking for tension in conversations because tension means that I'm kind of pressing on the right areas, if you will. It means that I'm going in the right direction and I lean into it. And the more tension I find, the more urgency my prospects have to want to solve the problems that they're in. See, tension comes from things being attacked on a chessboard. It could be pawns staring at each other. On a sales call, it could be that my prospect has illogical fallacies that I'm dismantling. On a sales call, it could be that my prospect has pain that they didn't even know about, affecting them in different areas of their life. And the more tension I have on a chessboard, the more tension I have in a sales conversation, the more potential energy I have, the more I can make a strong attack, the more I can make a strong sales argument that has urgency for them to want to solve the issue. Topic number 2, principle number 2 is that tension is a sales rep's friend, just like it is a grandmaster's friend in chess. Topic number 3 is creating chaos on the chessboard. See, in chess, if you're playing a better player or down material, maybe you're in a losing position, a theory is to create chaos on the board. And the reason you do that is because it puts your opponent outside of the comfort zone of play style that they have. When sales reps take sales calls, there's something called sales resistance. Sales resistance is just the fact that the prospect comes to a call knowing that the sales rep is there for a reason. The sales rep is there to sell the prospect something. And with that, prospects don't naturally let their barriers down. They have their arms up. They play defense. They know that you are a chess player trying to attack them and checkmate them. And so prospects naturally have this resistance because they expect a certain kind of play style. So what we can do is we can create chaos. We can be different than what they expect. Not putting them out of their comfort zone, but playing in a different way that they just aren't able to defend as easily. Specifically, one of my favorite ways to look at this is that I don't want to be a better sales rep than they expect. I want to be a different sales rep than they expect. Better is not better, different is better. And if I can come to a sales call and immediately change the play style of the call that they expected, it gives me the upper hand because now they're playing in a way that they aren't familiar with. One of my favorite ways to teach it is imagine you are a prospect coming to a sales call. There's a certain type of sales rep that you expect, right? A certain tonality and cadence in their voice, a certain demeanor that they have, a confidence that they elude. And if that prospect comes to the chess table and plays a different kind of game than they expected, if that prospect comes to a sales call and doesn't encounter the sales rep that they expected, but they encounter somebody different, they encounter someone who might be more humble, more mellow in tonality. Or maybe that closer cares more about the problem the prospect is facing rather than the product that they're selling. All these things make that prospect think, this is not what I expected. And when prospects come across the this is not what I expected feeling, when they get into that chaotic chess play, their defenses go down. They aren't able to defend themselves as much. They don't want to defend as easily. Like I said, in this analogy, we have to almost picture our opponents, our prospects, wanting to be checkmated, wanting to solve the problem, but their defenses are natural. And when we get them out of their comfort zone of playstyle, when we get them away from the defense they expected to have, their sales resistance goes down and we can have a more open and honest conversation with them. We can have a stronger attack. Topic number 4 is playing for checkmate. This is really common, but when you watch new chess players play chess, they will have a checkmate in 1 or 2 moves that's forced. Like they win the game right there. But instead they see something else that catches their eye. Maybe there's a free bishop or a hanging queen. And so instead of winning the game and getting checkmate, they take the material. And in turn, sales reps do the same thing when they start. New sales reps forget that the goal is not to sell the program or the product or the service, but instead to understand how you can help the prospect. But oftentimes sales reps forget that. And instead of trying to find out more about the problem and how you can help the prospect, sales reps often try to just sell the product, sell the service, sell the program. They lose eye on what is actually going to win them the game. One of the 3 goals that we discussed in the last lesson, understanding exactly how you can help the prospect. See, on sales calls, because it's been ingrained into you for the last probably 10, 15 years, you think sales is selling. You think sales is likely getting people to understand exactly what your program is and product is. My favorite way of telling sales reps what their job is saying, your job is not to tell people what you do, but how you can help them. And the only way you can tell them how you can help them is by understanding exactly what they're challenged with and where they are and where they want to go. And the more you do that, the more founded your anchor points are on the bridge that will help your prospects solve their problems. And bridging those problems, that is what leads to checkmate. That is what leads to your close. But if you chase the close, if you chase selling your product and service rather than looking for how you can help your prospect, you're just never going to checkmate the king. And that's the goal. 4 principles, and I'll break them down now after having used the chess analogies. We'll get into the sales context and sales context only case of each principle. But number 1 is consultative closing versus selling. Making sure that we look at every single sales conversation as a unique conversation, making sure that we analyze the prospect's problem, the chessboard's position, and then from that analysis, creating a custom game plan on how we approach the sales conversation, what points we use, what stories we tell, diagnosing a problem before giving a prescription. Again, prescription without proper diagnosis is malpractice, and it's no different in medicine than it is in sales. If we don't properly diagnose the problem that our prospect is having, then how can we prescribe them a fitted solution? Principle number 1 is that selling is out of date. We are consultative closers, not sales reps. Principle number 2 is tension. Being okay with that uncomfort and tension on your sales calls. Looking for tension on your sales calls, knowing that it helps create urgency so that your prospects are more wanting to take change, to take action, to close. Principle number 3 is introducing chaos into the sales conversation, being different than the sales rep they expect you to be. Reducing their sales resistance by not being overly egotistical, but instead being humble. By not selling, but diagnosing their problems. By not manipulating, but guiding them toward decision. If we go back to one of the first lessons I had in this series, it was that we are fighting a stigma in sales. And by creating chaos or being different than the stigma they expect, we're reducing resistance. We're creating a more open conversation. We're lowering their barriers of defense and in turn creating stronger attacks or sales arguments that we can use to help them conquer those disbeliefs, to help them dismantle their objections, and overall to help them take a change for the better of their lives. Number 4, looking for checkmate, programming your mind toward the goal of the game. And that goal being understanding the problems that we're trying to solve for your prospects, understanding the current state that they're in, the desired outcome they're looking to achieve, the clarity and nuances between all of that. That's the game. The game is not to sell the product. The game is to understand their problems. Everything from here on out in this phase is tactical and tangible. But these 4 underlying principles are what found every single tactic that we're going to get into. In our discovery, we change our discovery based on the opponent that we're playing, based on the person that we're talking to. In our discovery, we hold tension, we find tension, we look for tension, and we don't relieve it until we found an attack, until we get to the transition. We create chaos by being different than the sales reps they expect, by dismantling that stigma and reducing sales resistance. And we look for checkmate by remembering that the goal of the game is not to sell the product or the service, but instead to find out more about the prospect's problems and how we can solve them. If we can remember those 4 principles on every single sales call, then our tactics will be 10 times more valuable. Our frames, our word tracks, our lines, they will be 10 times more valuable. But if we forget those 4 principles, it doesn't matter how good of a tactician we are, we're going to lose the game. And we're not going to get the checkmate that we're looking for. We're not going to get the closes and impact in people's lives that we're looking for. So, sales principles, again, soft topics, intangibles, slightly harder to grasp. The more experience you have, the more you'll understand it. That brings this lesson to a conclusion. I want to make sure that you watch this again, though, specifically after you go through the entirety of phase 3. Come back. I said in the last lesson that we're in a bit of a catch-22, that it's hard to understand the why without the how and the how without the why. Today we went deep into the why. Last lesson we also went deep into the why. For the rest of this phase, we're going to go into the how. And so I encourage you, after you go through the rest of phase 3, to come back to this lesson and watch these principles again once you understand the frame of the sales call. I want you to understand what playing to your opponent means after you understand what a proper discovery looks like. I want you to understand how to relieve tension after you understand what a proper transition and pitch looks like. And I want you to understand what checkmate looks like after you learn about the close. That all said, it is time to get into the tactics, the hard skills, the tangibles of a sales call. We're going to start in our next lesson with the intro and frame of a sales call. I will see you there, but until then, happy hunting.